Many years ago, while watching Dragon Ball, I had the privilege to bear witness to what was at the time the best fight I had ever seen. An incredible duel between two great men. I am of course speaking of the fated battle of Goku and Piccolo. So on my mission to break down battles and help show the world what it takes to make an iconic fight, this stop is one that needs to be made. There are some major differences between the anime and the manga of this fight, so we're going to look at both versions to see the good and the bad, while seeing what makes one version better than the other. In this video we will be taking a closer look at the manga. Welcome everyone to Fightography, and potentially the best fight and the most influential manga to ever be made. It's quite obvious I'm a rather large fan of this fight in particular. However, through the course of this series, hopefully I can show why this fight works as well as it does, and firmly place this fight as one of the main candidates for greatest shonen fight of all time. With no more hyperbole and no more dues to give, let's check this battle out. First, let's discuss the thematic build-up going into this fight. To do this, we have to look at the anime because of the fact the manga actually has far less thematic layers to discuss. Goku at this point in the story is in an interesting place. He is not quite human and has powers beyond that of anything else on the planet. Even though he was sent to Earth to destroy it, he became its greatest protector. His natural personality is rather abrasive, selfish, and egotistical, but through his training with Master Roshi and God, he learned to control those sides of his personality, and now he truly only has two things driving him. That is the need to always progress forward to ever greater heights, and the desire to fight ever stronger opponents. Piccolo, on the other hand, was born only to do one thing: kill Goku and conquer the world. He's not a human by any means and is stronger than anyone else on the planet. If this sounds familiar, it's because he has the exact same starting point as Goku. The only difference is, where Goku was shown kindness and belief that he could be greater than himself, Piccolo was shut out from the world and felt like his destiny was already set in stone. That is the ideological difference that separates this coin. They both have the same starting points and outcomes, but one feels confined while the other feels that they have freedom. This shows through their fight, with Piccolo fighting like a caged dog and Goku generally just going with the flow and coming up with the very creative solutions. As I stated earlier, the anime has more of a build to the fight itself, having introduced and explored Piccolo's character before the manga. That isn't where the differences stop, however. At this point in the anime's history, almost anyone would tell you that it is at its peak. The anime takes the manga and fleshes it out further while covering for some of the major writing problems. This is about peak Dragon Ball anime, and with leaving out gratuitous detail, that translates into the fights at this time period as well. That doesn't mean this is going to be a wash between the two mediums, because of the fact this also happens to be Akira Toriyama at his artistic peak. As the Dragon Ball manga continues after this point, the level of detail and the quality of design work goes down. With that said, at this moment though, that hasn't quite happened yet. Moreover, this is right after a time skip, leaving the whole cast with fresher designs that are going to be taken advantage of through the course of this fight. Especially our two main contestants. They both just look so youthful and exuberant. There's going to be just some breathtaking panels and expressions. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, however. As I will go over throughout the course of this video, there are going to be numerous mistakes and missteps in this fight, and about 95% of them come down to oddities in the artwork. With all that said, let's actually start talking about the fight itself. However, there's one more thing to explain. Before the battle begins, we know that Piccolo cannot be killed without God being killed with him, since their souls are connected. So to combat this, Piccolo seals God in a small pot and then proceeds to eat him. Meaning two things. One, if Piccolo were to take a serious attack to the stomach, he could die, whereas normally he would just reincarnate himself. This does end up affecting the fight in both negative and positive ways, which we will discuss during the fight itself. As the crowd cheers for the finale of the tournament, the battle has already begun metaphorically. Piccolo has already tried to get into Goku's head and, well, Goku is being Goku. This page here says everything you need to know about how Goku is going to be fighting throughout the course of this match. He's not actually treating this as seriously as one might think. Krillin's reaction to this is of course the fate of the world is on the line, whereas at this point Goku doesn't really care about the world, he really just cares about testing his mettle in this match. At this point in the story, there is no reason for Goku to think that he is anything but the strongest man on the planet. And even though he's going into this fight with relative caution, he still believes that he is favored in this matchup, not just from having won previously against Piccolo's father, but also because of the fact he's gotten so much stronger after that there's little chance that Piccolo actually could be an actual threat. But we can discuss more as the battle continues. In a swift motion, Piccolo throws away his cape with a large amount of smug, but immediately goes into a more intense and more serious fighting position. As this action and most of his battle will suggest, Piccolo is mostly putting up a facade. There's an interesting contrast between the actions that Piccolo takes as himself and the actions he takes as Ma Jr., the Demon King. There's a large visual distinction between the two, but yet they also have similar-esque clothing. Even just looking at their eyes, Piccolo's is a lot more slanted and sharp, but yet they're still rounded. And this is where the fight actually begins, with both fighters immediately going at each other. Goku attacks with his elbow and knee. This is interesting because it shows that he's not really going all out from the beginning, and more so is just testing what Piccolo is really capable of. Generally speaking, Piccolo would be the one testing Goku out because he's more of the cunning, planning type. However, Goku is the one who actually tests the water first. As the battle continues, Goku is going to slowly but surely ramp it up, and this kind of shows where the starting point is going to be. If Piccolo had answered this response with a more serious attack, the battle probably would have been completely different, but because Piccolo answered with a more defensive style, it starts where it does. Even though this doesn't necessarily right away seem like a big deal, and it's clear that Akira Toriyama didn't put this much thought into the fight because I don't think he's put this much of thought collectively into all of Dragon Ball, but it does show something interesting. If this fight had started in a different way, Piccolo would have a huge advantage. That could have right here decided the battle. If Goku had right away started using more of his abilities, Piccolo could have actually analyzed Goku a lot better and ended up possibly winning strictly based off of if Piccolo was more aggressive here, because Goku would have matched him, meaning the fight would have actually started in Piccolo's favor. It's just an interesting little nuance that completely changes how this fight plays out. It continues with a little light exchange, but then immediately goes into Piccolo headbutting Goku. This immediately sets up both fighters' styles. Piccolo is sending a more underhanded but stronger attack at Goku, who immediately recovers from it. Now, this panel here of Goku actually kicking Piccolo isn't the best execution. The torque in Goku's body doesn't quite look right for what actually ends up happening to Piccolo. And in all honesty, it's not very clear what's happening in these images at all. There's not a very good understanding of spatial awareness. A strange kick from Goku ends up with Goku kind of pulling back and Piccolo jumping backwards, but then Piccolo immediately goes into a slide backwards again. But the problem is, Piccolo was already at the edge of the ring, meaning none of this makes any sense whatsoever. It looks okay in the moment, but it really doesn't make sense from the fight's context. It's not expressed very well if Piccolo took any damage from that hit, it's not expressed very well if Goku took damage from that hit, and in all honesty, it could have probably been expressed better how Goku knew Piccolo was behind him. The first guess would be because Goku was training to sense people's energy levels and just be able to see without seeing, but that doesn't quite make that much sense. Yes, that is probably what is happening, but it's not communicated in any way. Goku is still looking forward, and the kick just kind of goes back blindly. So it's obvious it's not coming from any normal senses, and it's coming from the sixth sense of being able to sense his opponent's ki. But again, if that's what it's being based off of, there's probably something better to do in this situation, because it seems like Piccolo's arm doesn't move at all, but he walked forward slightly to get closer to Goku. Meaning this happens in about a split second, but yet still enough time for Goku to do something more with this. Because he senses where Piccolo's going to be, he would have technically more time to react and could easily have thrown out a different move here. Whether or not this is on purpose to show Goku's still going easy on Piccolo, or if this is some sort of just oddity, which I'm more inclined to go with, it still is very strange overall. Piccolo then reels back and then starts elongating his arm to reach out towards Goku. I have absolutely no idea what this is useful for. There's no actual real movement to this, there's no like spring effect. It just starts to stretch outward. It's not in the shape of a fist, so it's not meant to hit, so I'm assuming he was going to catch Goku by the shirt, pull him in, and then punch him? Just a frame showing Piccolo actually trying to grasp at Goku and then him dodging could probably serve this a lot better than just an image of Goku's face. Going with the flow of the fight, Goku immediately stops Piccolo's interesting ability and just grabs his arm, which I find absolutely incredible. But again, another odd decision is made here. He throws Piccolo into the air. There's a nice use of perspective in the art to show kind of how intense this throw is and show that Piccolo doesn't have much reaction time from it. But the thing is, he could have done almost anything else here. Why throw him into the air? Goku at this moment knows Piccolo can fly, and he knows he doesn't have very many long-range attacks. This just strictly seems like a way to open himself up for Piccolo just to have a huge advantage in the fight overall. Again, it could be shown that Goku is still not taking this seriously at all, and he's just trying to land a quick lucky hit in, but if that's what Akira Toriyama is going for, then it just kind of comes off that Goku really isn't even trying at all. It'd been interesting if Goku had slammed Piccolo into the ground and then Piccolo had used that force to leap into the air. And then that would also probably flow better because it would go immediately from Goku slamming to the ground, Piccolo going to the air, then Goku just immediately reacting with some sort of attack. Goku doms Piccolo in the face, then launches towards him. It seems like he's about to land a few extra blows in, but Piccolo immediately recovers. This catches Goku off guard and allows Piccolo to blast him back towards the ground. Now, the general flow of Piccolo bouncing forward works really well. It looks like it would generally catch Goku off guard, but Goku's posture in this frame is strange to say the least. It's not clear how Goku was going to follow up on this from having his fist forward and the other fist back. He couldn't really punch Piccolo from this position, so it looks more like he was going to grab him, pull him down, and then hit him again. But that doesn't really make sense because he could have just done that earlier without throwing him into the air. When he first launches up, it looks like he would go for some sort of barrage of punches and launch Piccolo back towards the ground again. This position seems like it would only have one type of movement, and that movement wouldn't really allow for any type of follow-up. Meaning Goku and Piccolo would both be in there, with Piccolo being able to fly and Goku, at this point, not being able to fly, meaning he'd be at a distinct disadvantage. So overall, it's a good interaction, but this posing of Goku doesn't really work for the context of the actual fight. Goku seems to take some damage from the attack, and Piccolo immediately follows up with a barrage of more hits. From the start of the fight, there has not been a let-up on either side thus far, which is really good for the pacing of the battle overall. Sadly, this pacing is going to hit quite a bit of a halt in the next couple pages. I do want to point out the weight behind Piccolo's beams though. It really does look like he's forcing a lot of energy out of his hands from how he's positioning them. It looks like he's really putting his entire body into each hit, which makes each hit have a lot more weight to it. Goku slams into the ground and then the hits start to connect. There's a good use of the audience to show just how powerful this hit is by showing a huge gust of wind blowing everything back. And then showing Goku lying his crater face down implies quite a bit of damage was done. And Piccolo's landing back on the ground with a very gentle tap is also very, very nice add. Even his posture really sells that Piccolo really hasn't tried at all thus far in this fight. And also the lack of blood is a little bit of foreshadowing that Goku hasn't been trying at all either. There's a nice little exchange here between the two about Goku's playing possum. It shows a certain level of closeness between the two fighters. Even though they've technically kind of never formally met, they still have this somewhat connection, even if it's just from this fight itself. Technically Piccolo's entire life is devoted to killing Goku, but still, let's not dwell on that. The last few pages has shown a few things. It shows that both sides have some sort of mutual respect towards each other, and also shows that both sides have not tried in the slightest yet, meaning the real fight hasn't even truly started. Again, it shows this exchange between Piccolo and Goku. Piccolo is still holding fast to his facade of being this demon king, and Goku still has this 50-50 attitude on the fight. It does show that both sides believe that Goku is the stronger combatant here, but neither side is willing to quite admit that yet. Piccolo from the aspect that he has to kill Goku because that's the only thing that gives his life any meaning, and Goku can't claim that he's the strongest because it would go against everything he believes. And of course he does just want a real good fight from Piccolo, so technically the two things that matter most to Goku both don't allow him to believe that he's stronger. It allows for these interesting little exchanges between the two that allows a little more intimacy to the fight. While both sides are kind of putting up a stronger facade, each side is also simultaneously showing their weakness to each other. But then, with that over, both sides launch directly back into action. With screams, they both clash in the center. Now, this generally feels like an underwhelming clash, especially with the long pulled back view of it. And it seems like the anime agreed because they added a lot more weight to this clash by adding ki around them and just generally making it a lot more intense. And I do have to say that makes this a lot stronger. Immediately showing how this is a bigger deal than before adds more weight to this next section of the fight. We now know that they are both truly going all out. Now this is interesting, it looks like Piccolo had went to catch Goku's fist, but Goku had opened his hand to catch Piccolo's. So even though it looks at first like they're perfectly even in this exchange, it shows that Goku is quite a bit faster than Piccolo here. And whereas Piccolo was going for the first move, Goku managed to react and get the upper hand on Piccolo. But that won't stop our tyrant from launching some laser beams out of his eyes. Now, the eye lasers don't have very much weight to them. It would have been great if they pierced through the stone ring to show they could have done some damage to Goku, but as is, it just looks like they would have been a small nuisance and nothing more. However, Goku's response to this is a very, very good use of weight. He immediately ducks down into himself with his entire body as a load up and then goes into a kick upwards. This carries a huge amount of weight and immediately swings the entire momentum of the battle. Goku then uses this momentum for springing upwards to launch himself back, and then he uses this opportunity to start going super fast around the ring, I guess. However, it doesn't seem like it's done much. With a quick crack to Goku's soul and a subsequent launch into a pillar, it really does seem like Piccolo has won this exchange. And this is the first time throughout the entire battle that it seems like Goku has taken some significant damage. However, that assumption is immediately flipped on its head when Goku instantly appears behind Piccolo again. And then, of course, Goku gives Piccolo a crack of his own to the skull. And I want to highlight Piccolo's face here. It really does look like he's disorientated from this attack. More than being disorientated, it also shows that Goku is just strictly winning when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. So using the momentum of the kick, Piccolo bounces himself off the ground into the air. Again, a good use of momentum. It also shows Piccolo manages to get fully into the air before Goku even has a chance to come out of his kick fully. And where Goku here feels like it didn't affect Piccolo at all, it clearly is visualized on Piccolo's cheek that he has taken some sort of damage, and clearly his pride has taken a little bit of damage as well. Whereas Goku doesn't actually have any marks on him to show that Piccolo's hit did anything at all. Piccolo tries to blow up the arena and Goku tries to divert the attack. Whether or not he's doing this to save people or just to keep the arena from being blown up, it's hard to say, but he does it nevertheless. Piccolo sends out a beam that looks like it has his full body behind it, again having it carry a lot more weight. As Goku reaches the arc of his jump, he immediately puts ki into his palm to launch himself to the side. This allows him to only be grazed by the beam itself. Now this is an interesting use of momentum. Because Goku had just not reached the peak of his height, he ends up getting hit by this attack. This is interesting in a couple of perspectives. It shows that each opponent is barely damaging each other by a matter of seconds, but it also shows if Goku wasn't worried about the other contestants in the audience and had jumped sooner, he would have been able to avoid this attack entirely. Because again, this is just the difference of 1 or 2 seconds. We see a big fallout from the attack itself, which results in an explosion equivalent to a small nuclear bomb. Now, as Piccolo is calculating the damage done, Goku is immediately going into his next attack. He uses a Kamehameha wave to launch himself back into the arena and then threatens to use some sort of super Kamehameha wave. He squats down and starts to put all of his posture into this move. However, this is where we reach the first major actual hiccup in the battle itself. The pacing is somewhat ruined by the long stretch of dialogue that happens here, and also the fact that Goku doesn't know not to launch a giant beam at Piccolo himself is a little bit strange. Again, at this point, Goku should be the smartest fighter here. He should also be the one that's the most worried about keeping God safe. And again, there is no reason to even think that this attack would just kill Piccolo right away. So this entire exchange doesn't really make sense and really just kills the pacing of the fight. There's some taunting back and forth, and Piccolo goes into a stick about killing everyone there and sending them to hell, whatever. Psh, we all know demons can't send people to hell. Oh wait. Again, this is just generally killing the entire pace of the which up to this point had been pretty perfectly paced. There's the immediate action, and when that action was cut, it was to transition into a secondary part of the fight. Instead of having some strange dialogue that detracts from the fight itself, we had dialogue between two contestants that really built each other up. It really showed how they were thinking in that moment and what they thought of each other. This, however, is just kind of, The thought process behind the actual actions are as important as the actions themselves. Piccolo begins to charge up a massive attack, and Goku just kind of stands there. Okay. As Piccolo's getting ready to wipe out everyone on the island, Goku is quickly trying to rack his brain on how to stop this, which again doesn't make much sense because he's been in this type of situation before and should immediately know what to do. Especially since he's had multiple hours, if not days, if not years to think about what to do in this exact situation. He had been preparing for the past 4 years to fight Piccolo again. He knew that it was probably going to happen here, and yet he doesn't have a response to this. Okay. Now, this is a, again, strange decision. Instead of Goku coming to the decision to try to counter Piccolo's attack in some way, he has to be told to counter it by an outside source, detracting from the overall mental duel that is going on during this fight. It seems like most of Goku's decisions are being made for him, and this was kind of just pulled out to add a little bit of extra drama and to give the side characters something to do. For the battle itself, it completely detracts from the actual tension of it and completely destroys any and all pacing that had been happening up till this point. Piccolo actually launches the beam itself, and Goku sends a counter back. Now, there's an entire page here dedicated just to to Goku's initial releasing of his own beam. It shows Goku being blown back from it and that it's of a significantly larger size than Piccolo's when it's first released. And here both beams take similar shapes. It starts off rounded, goes into a straight line, then spreads out. The difference is Piccolo's is, well, far smaller, and also Piccolo's looks like it has a flow to it, where Goku's looks like it has actual weight and power behind it. It looks like it's piercing directly through anything Piccolo would throw at it. And in manga, it immediately results in Piccolo being blasted away. Now, again, this is strange to say the least. In the anime, the scene is much more drawn out. It uses great use of color to really emphasize this clash and really has them struggling against each other, with Goku inevitably coming out on top. Having Goku immediately beat Piccolo's attack just kind of shows a huge imbalance in their actual power. If Goku is far faster and stronger than Piccolo, and also has way more energy than Piccolo by a huge margin, it really does seem like this was never even close to an even fight. Piccolo has enough time to guard from the attack, and Goku seems slightly winded from it. In the end, it actually doesn't deal that much damage to Piccolo himself, but Goku does nevertheless seem very surprised at his condition, which is strange. I don't know why Goku would be completely surprised by this, because again, they can sense ki, and when they send out lasers, their ki spikes to around their actual maximum amount, so he should immediately have known that this wouldn't have happened. The thing that's actually being gone for here is that, oh, surprise, surprise, Piccolo is stronger than Goku thought, but really this should have been used as a moment again to show mutual respect between the two sides. Goku should have immediately realized and known that Piccolo would have been able to take that attack on the chin, and it could have shown some actual development between the two fighters. It even could have shown Goku's cocky side just a little bit, that he hadn't completely gotten rid of it. He could have just stood there and just waited for Piccolo to actually have another move to respond to it. Both fighters stew in what just happened until Piccolo decides to head back to the ground. Again, there's good build up here. Piccolo lands with complete ease, but he's clearly not as confident or as calm as he was before, if you couldn't tell by the massive veins popping out of him. It shows that both fighters are somewhat on the edge here, where both sides were relatively collective and calm, even smiling. Piccolo here is furious, and Goku is taking it a lot more seriously because his big ace attack just got brushed off like it was nothing. There's some commentary from the crowd and the people, and they realize that this giant green slug man that looks like King Piccolo actually is the son of King Piccolo. Wow! So they run away, as you do. Goku asks for everyone to stand back some more so they can actually have a real fight now. He then lets Piccolo know that he's not going to let him take over the world, which is just adorable. There's still this nonchalant attitude held between the two fighters. But of course the flow of the fight continues. Piccolo begins to bust out another strange move to catch Goku off guard. He grows really big. Goku is surprised. Direction here from Goku is actually fantastic, but there's not actually much going on in the battle itself, so I'm going to take this time to actually discuss a concept that seems to be on display here. Now, even though by all means, this fight is no longer a pretense of just being a martial arts tournament, and even though Piccolo is now 1,000 feet tall and doesn't even fit in the ring, he's still in the ring. By no means does this make any sense, but yet, it's happening. Piccolo can fly. Piccolo could easily be in the air and just barrage Goku with attacks to try to win. There is no reason for either of them to be fighting in the ring, since again this is a battle for the fate of the world, and again, Goku just wants to test his true skills. But yet, they stay in the ring anyway. Throughout the course of the entirety of the fight, it never once leaves the ring. Now I'm going to discuss the reason why. Both fighters, metaphorically, are trapped in this ring. I don't just mean that by the way of both sides want this win, and both sides need to confront each other, and thusly they are in the ring and have to fight each other. I mean more so by both sides are trapped by some inner part of themselves. Piccolo is confined by the fact that he feels his destiny is set, and that he has to kill Goku. But the problem is, he can't kill Goku. Or rather, he doesn't even really want to kill Goku. So even though he is technically giving it his all to beat Goku and to kill him, he's doing more than that. He wants to demoralize Goku. He wants to beat Goku on his own playing field. He wants to match Goku and beat him thoroughly. If that means fighting him in his own tournament that he's never won, then he's going to do that, and he's going to play by the rules. Technically, there's nothing in the rules that says he can't kill everyone who's watching and blow up the arena, but there are rules saying he can't step outside of the arena, so he doesn't. But more than that, the arena also represents something he can't destroy. To destroy the arena is almost to destroy the reason he's fighting Goku, and to destroy Goku is to destroy his reason for living. The only reason he's alive, the only thing that gives his existence meaning, is the notion of killing Goku. To destroy the arena would destroy the fight, To destroy Goku would destroy his own meaning for existence. Meaning throughout the entirety of this fight, no matter how much he gives, he's not going to give 100%. He could give 99%, he could give 90%, but he's not going to give 100% no matter what happens. Because he wants to beat Goku on his own playing field, and he also really doesn't want to kill Goku. Whereas Goku is more so confined by his own limitations. Goku knows that he is the strongest man in the world. He might not admit it, but he knows it. And throughout the course of this entire fight, the thing that matters to him is winning this tournament and just testing his skill. But he can't. He's stronger than Piccolo. He's far stronger than Piccolo. Throughout the entirety of this fight, he barely is trying. And at most, he is only giving about 80%. Goku really cannot give it his all in this fight, because if he does, he's going to throw away his only real chance at a good fight. The only thing Piccolo has is tricks up his sleeve, meaning he can only really fight Piccolo once before he knows everything Piccolo's going to do. And once that happens, there's no longer a good fight there. Meaning no matter what, he's not going to give 100% because that's just going to end the fight instantly. Again, Goku's confinement is the fact that he is too strong for the planet he's currently on. He's too strong for the series he's in, he's too strong for his rival to hurt him. Big Boy Piccolo continues his barrage of attacks and actually manages to land a nice blow on Goku, swatting him to the ground. The actual flow of this looks really nice. It seems like Goku is being swatted down just like a fly. There's not a lot of torque from Piccolo, but there is just enough to seem like this has quite a bit of impact. And for the first time, it seems like Goku has some actual injuries. Of course, outside influences try to help Goku at this point, but he turns them down because of the fact he wants this to be a fair fight. This image, for having strange perspective, actually puts the fight in perspective. Piccolo, at this moment, is giant, and could hurt a lot. This is a David versus Goliath moment. However, that's about to be flipped on its head just slightly. He's grown even larger and, again, magically Piccolo doesn't step out of the ring, makes sense to me, and through Piccolo's posturing, he manages to actually open up his one weakness, which Goku was apparently planning for. It's not like he said anything to provoke Piccolo, but I guess he was planning for this? Goku then launches himself inside of Piccolo, which looks incredible. Generally, when characters go into giants' mouths, it doesn't have much perspective, but in this, Piccolo actually starts to gag. It looks like Goku hit the back of Piccolo's throat, and it actually is bothering him greatly. This is a slight thing that most people overlook, but actually adds a lot to this fight. It shows why Piccolo couldn't just immediately do something. He is in an immense amount of pain right now. And when Piccolo does manage to spit Goku up, it's already too late. He's managed to take God outside of Piccolo's stomach and give it to Tien. Which means one thing, God is back, baby! Which in the end doesn't mean much because Goku's not trying to kill Piccolo either way, so it actually doesn't change anything at all. But God's back! Woo! Piccolo returns to his normal size and the battle continues. They kick it up into high gear once again, and even God can't keep up with them this time. The things that pass for omnipotence these days. The fight continues and it seems like each side is landing good blows on each other, but Piccolo is now seemingly trying everything and anything to hit Goku and actually have it stick. Showing his fists, showing his fingers, showing his stabbing motion, it seems like he's just trying to do anything that could cause even just a little bit of damage to the other side. It does manage to knock Goku away, which allows him to launch a Kamehameha wave from his feet, launching back towards Piccolo once again. Now, when he connects with both his fists here, it should look like it has huge impact. He's essentially a rocket ship launched at Piccolo, and if you got hit by a rocket, it would probably hurt, but it just doesn't seem like it really connects that well overall. And things that would have had far less impact seem to have way more of an effect on Piccolo himself. So it's kind of just an odd presentation here overall. There should have been more of a effect from this. Piccolo should have condensed into himself and bounced back. It does seem like he might have lost consciousness for a couple seconds, but immediately starts to fly again. The way that Piccolo's movement manages to start at the base of his feet and move all the way up his body and come out through his lasers looks really nice. One of the reasons the eye lasers earlier on didn't work is because there's no actual movement or pressure behind it. But this, his entire body is going into this lasers coming out of his little antenna, and it looks like it's going to deal some damage. And from Goku getting literally electrocuted, it seems like it did some damage. Goku falls back and Piccolo springs forward with a lot of life. It looks like he's about to deal quite a significant piece of damage. Goku falls to the ground and seems like his entire body has gone numb and gone into shock from, well, the electric shock he just got. Piccolo hits the ground and springs forward again with great movement, and it seems like his entire body is condensed down and loaded up to deliver one concise hit that's going to do a lot of damage, and as soon as it hits, the entire fight is going to turn around completely, and nothing could possibly make this go wrong. Oh, I see. God ends up blocking the punch, and well, I guess Goku gets to live for another day. However, like earlier, Goku tells God to stay out of this, and God is just confused by the fact Goku even cares about the match and not, the fate of the world. And this is where the fight I really think starts to take a bit of a turn. Goku offers up Piccolo one free hit. And it does seem like this hit does do some damage. Probably not as much damage as the other one would have, especially since we don't get to see Piccolo wind up here at all, but it certainly is something, and after it seems like Goku is quite bereft of air. There's quite a large amount of dialogue going on at this point, a lot of posturing, a lot of other things going on, but mostly just a brevity from the fight itself. I will say, the break is acceptable. It's definitely a better use of a break in pacing than the last one. It's just that the entire fight thus far has been based off of each side throwing out quick little consecutive hits that has been based off of just differences in seconds. To have a fight that is so close and so dependent on speed and little nuances to continuously get broken up all the time, it really kind of destroys the momentum of it. It doesn't really matter how fast a sports car goes if you keep slamming on the brakes every 5 to 10 minutes. It revs up fast, it goes fast, but bam, another break. And I'd say that overall is the biggest flaw in this fight. Now, with the action actually starts to progress again, this time Piccolo begins to charge an attack rather than launch in. Piccolo uses both hands to really emphasize the force behind this attack, and Goku just kind of postures up ready to receive it. Goku easily dodges out of the way, but surprise surprise, the key beam can actually curve. Goku dodges again, but curves once more. It becomes clear that the beam is going to track him no matter where he goes, so he immediately decides to plunge directly towards the ground in a spear-type motion, which looks fantastic, but more so than just looking good, it also shows that he's so much faster than the beam while doing this, he has time to really set up what he's about to do next. He perfectly waits for the beam to catch up to him, then immediately dashes towards Piccolo. And Piccolo's facial expressions really sells how this is working. He doesn't quite know what Goku is doing at this moment if he's just willing to take this hit, but when he launches towards him, he's immediately surprised, realizes what's happening, gets surprised once more by Goku's quick stop and facial expression, and by the time Goku disappears, it's already too late to react. He gets hit and the first real piece of damage is applied. Piccolo's arm is broken, Goku tells him to give up, but he instantly removes the arm without thinking. This gives you 1 second to think that Piccolo removed it just to keep up with Goku in the fight, then he immediately regrows it. And this shows a key difference between Goku and Piccolo. Piccolo has much better durability and would win a war of fatigue. Even Goku's caught off guard by this move. Now that one moment of hesitation that up to this point would have been fine, is actually enough for a big swing to happen. Piccolo immediately starts going into a huge explosive move. Again, because of that hesitation, Goku doesn't have time to react, so all he can do is begin to guard against it. There's a good use of color here to show just how intense this charge actually is, but here is where it gets a little bit slow. It shows how the rest of the crew actually managed to survive this huge explosion, by of course digging a slight hole in the ground for them to hop into. Okay. I mean, this is kind of on par with hopping into a fridge to survive a nuclear blast, but whatever. It would have been far more impactful if Piccolo just immediately had went to explosion. So if you went from this to this, there would have been flow, there would have been impact, and it would have been immediate. We get a good shot of Piccolo completely spread out, showing just how much power is exuding out of him, leaving him spread open completely. There's good impact on Goku here, showing him slightly blasted back, but also showing how much of effect this is actually having on the environment. And then of course it shows another nuclear bomb to compare it to the explosion that happened earlier. There's good use of debris here to show that it's completely destroying everything in its path. This attack has now gone beyond a nuclear bomb. It completely has disrupted the ocean. It's blown away entire buildings made of concrete and iron. It clearly has done a huge amount of damage. And after it, Piccolo is shaking. His body can barely contain itself after exerting that much energy. Of course he thinks he's won, with his arms still in the air, showing that clearly he has at least some amount of damage taken from that attack itself. Whether or not he's just numb and it's hard to move them, or he actually is in physical pain and is unable to move them, is not really shown, but it's not necessary either. Again, while holding the same posture, he realizes Goku is still there, and the surprise allows him to ease out of his posture he was holding this whole time just a little bit. Goku, on the other hand, seems nearly unimpacted by the actual blast itself, and Piccolo is completely shell-shocked. This is a very good use of a slow burn. It shows that Goku is immediately ready to go on the offensive, while Piccolo is just completely caught off guard. He has no idea what to do. His mind is blank at this moment, meaning everything Goku's about to do, Piccolo has no response to. The only problem is, it goes on for too long. This phase here should probably be cut out completely, and even part of this page could be cut out. If it went directly from Goku clenching his fist to Goku going into his sprinter position, it would have worked really well, but as it is now, it's a little bit contrived. However, this sprinter position I do want to talk about for a second itself. It looks very, very good. To actually get someone set up like this works really well in the context. The other side is just completely dumbfounded, doesn't know what to do, is not thinking straight, allowing this side to set up a perfect response. He's far away, but he is going to dart forward as efficiently as possible. Then there's a good use of just pure momentum forward. This isn't a spring effect, it's a pure straight line forward. Use of perspective to stretch Goku's body out as well adds to this effect greatly. And then it leads to possibly the best looking frame out of anything in all of Dragon Ball history. Oh my gosh, this looks so good. If you want to sell a hit, you do something like this. This is just insane. Goku himself doesn't look like he's exerting much force, but Piccolo looks absolutely devastated. The bug-eyed, the facial expression, just the actual reel back with his neck and eye, just completely flinging itself back and his body barely keeping up with the actual momentum behind the hit. It looks fantastic. And importantly, as Piccolo is still being flung back, mid-flying back from the elbow, Goku immediately barrages him with kicks. Even though Goku's body is not behind the kicks very much, the consecutive amount of them and just how much power is going into the leg itself really sells that this is doing a lot of damage. And as Piccolo is reeling back, bleeding out, just barely grasping for air, Goku then lunges into a huge uppercut. And again, an effect like this works so well. He hit Piccolo so hard, his fist is inside of him. More than that, his entire body is being flinged in just the right way. It forms that perfect U shape, and his just gaping mouth spewing out blood as his eyes completely dilate sells this hit so well. Goku's posture is not perfect here. It could be better. He could be putting more force into the actual uppercut itself, and he also could be looking in generally a better direction, but it might be a little more awkward to draw that way. And the general look of sweat and just the vacant look in Piccolo's eyes here shows that he's basically clocked out of this fight at this moment. This gives time for Goku to launch in the air and do whatever he wants. And as soon as Piccolo realizes what's happening, the attack has already been launched. The use of seconds in this is very important. As soon as the other side is understanding what's happening, they're 1 or 2 seconds behind and it's too late. The actual use of time during the entirety of this fight is very, very good. It shows each fighter's actual intelligence is near each other, and it shows that each fighter's reaction time is near each other, and it really shows that each side has to use everything at their disposal to barely get the advantage over each other. As the beam launches directly down, it looks weaker than the Super Kamehameha wave, which makes sense because Piccolo could possibly die from it. You go from this vibrant, bouncy beam into Piccolo's terrified, stretched expression, to Piccolo being hit so hard into the ground that he starts to bounce and float into the air. Not just bounce, he actually floats into the air. It sells it so well. Again, there's a big difference here. This beam is rounded, it's soft. It looks like it's going to have a different effect, and that makes it more distinctive, more unique than just having another strong beam being launched out. Having Piccolo react with a stretched, terrified expression is very different than him being just surprised again. And having it look like Piccolo starts to float off of the ground instead of him bouncing off the ground like how most of the time this fight has been going, makes it just that much more distinctive and really shows the difference in how this part of the fight is towards the other parts of the fight. Goku then gracefully spins to the ground, and it seems like he has won. Piccolo is completely trashed in a giant crater in the ground. All hail Goku, he's done it again. And there's a solid 3 pages of just celebration and the ref counting down Piccolo as he's about to be knocked out. As Goku turns back to give a thumbs up, and on the 9 count, before any thought could happen, Piccolo immediately lunges up and launches an attack from his mouth. This is interesting in a couple different perspectives. Usually, you would show Goku being hit before you show Piccolo actually doing something, or you wouldn't show Piccolo doing anything at all, you just show the aftermath of what Goku gets hit by. But to actually show Piccolo lunge out of the ground like this and just immediately unlatch his jaw to unleash this beam, this piercing beam straight out, it really changes the context of what's happening. It's desperate. It's not a clever tactic. It's not Piccolo was pretending to be on the ground knocked out. Piccolo was actually knocked out this whole time and immediately sprang to life to have just one desperate shot. And as we see, this desperate shot it kind of works, kind of doesn't. Goku gets hit straight through the chest, and the actual impact of this is good. His entire body isn't contorting, so it feels like the beam is just piercing straight through, but yet there is pullback. Usually when there's a piercing beam, it just goes straight through without really much of a reaction from the actual person. But this both pushes Goku back and pierces through. He's not completely pushed back, he's not completely pierced through. It leaves this very unique image that you couldn't get out of any other context. Goku had to be standing there, Piccolo had to be in a crater at a certain angle, and it had to be this exact type of beam to end up in this situation. Because of that, it leaves you with this almost completely unique image that you won't see almost anywhere else in any other fight. Something as simple as just barely changing a couple things around and just having some unique positioning can end up with something that's iconic and that cannot be replicated any other way. This is an interesting thing to think about with just how you can change just one or two small things around and it completely changes everything. There's a weird use of perspective here. It seems like Goku is falling to the ground, but not at the angle he should be falling to the ground at. And he also has armbands on. I'm just going to say that Akira Toriyama was having an off day again, as always, and just did some weird stuff. But yeah, this perspective here should be a lot better. And even this fall to the ground here is not selling the actual damage that just happened. However, you could have went directly to this image here and it would have worked fine. In fact, I would say just cut out that entire last page and everything would have been fine. Goku falls back, bleeds everywhere, reels back in pain, and just is fidgeting on the ground, completely destroyed. Piccolo, still out of breath, still clearly barely conscious, is slowly getting himself up off the ground. This adds a lot of tension. Both sides are in a desperately bad place, and it really comes down to who can overcome their pain first. And even though Piccolo does end up recovering first, it does have you guessing whether or not Goku will also get back up. He then stomps on Goku's arm. It looks like a very good impact, but we don't really see what happens to the arm itself. It could be shattered, it might not be. There should have probably been an image actually showing the arm getting shattered itself. There's also a really good pull here from Piccolo. You can really see him pull his entire body and just directly point his hand at the opposition. It also sells the desperation. He's moving fast and very inefficiently, but yet, because of the fact he's the only fighter up that actually has any real power behind his movements, he doesn't have to be efficient. Again, another strange lacking in perspective. Goku just kind of stands back up. Piccolo was standing on Goku's shoulder. Goku, in this moment, is dying, basically. It took him quite a bit. He staggers up. He doesn't bounce up, he staggers up. So it's a weird use of perspective. It's a weird use of Piccolo not really knowing what's going on when he possibly should. And if he shouldn't have known what's going on, they should probably focus more on Piccolo actually being exhausted and not really being all there at the moment. Again, a surprise to the reader shouldn't necessarily be a surprise to the actual character. Simply because of the fact the reader doesn't see what's going on exactly, doesn't mean the character who's standing right next to them and possibly standing on top of them shouldn't know exactly what's happening. Piccolo lunges forward again very inefficiently and Goku easily ducks. He then swiftly delivers a liver blow, or, whatever a Namekian would have there. But since Piccolo tenses up immediately from the impact, it's safe to assume that that was supposed to be some sort of liver hit. Piccolo then has a sweeping kick into Goku, which is interesting to say the least. Goku throughout the course of this fight has been able to dodge and duck and weave through most of Piccolo's hits, but Piccolo hasn't thrown out a sweeping hit this entire time. It's possible that if he was doing that from the beginning, Goku might have dodged this, or it's possible that Goku is bad at dodging these type of attacks and this could have hit at any time. This is one of those little nuances that could completely change a rematch or just change this match in general if it was pulled out sooner. Again, a very good use of timing here. The fight slows down, it shows that both sides are completely destroyed. Both are struggling even just to stand, and they both clearly only have enough energy for a couple more exchanges. But whereas it seems Goku is about to fade out of consciousness, it looks like Piccolo is about to catch his second wind. Again, Piccolo uses a good use of momentum to fling himself forward and shoulder Goku in, I think, the nose. It's not very clear. That should probably be highlighted what part is being hit better. If it's nose, he should probably be bleeding from the nose a bit. If it wasn't the nose and Piccolo hit the wound itself, he should probably have reacted accordingly with his body starting to fly back from that point and then stretching outward. Piccolo then does a strange movement where he lunges forward looking like he's about to tackle Goku, but instead decides to do a flip. He flips and lands on Goku's knee, again crushing it. I'm not going to say that this is a terrible movement, but again, the impact doesn't sell this at all, and then just generally what's happening here doesn't make sense. Goku's already on the ground and knocked out. Piccolo doesn't have to do a move to confuse Goku, so he's really just doing a move that wastes more of his energy when he has very little left and doesn't really do much else. He could have easily just ran over, and snapped Goku's leg. He didn't have to do any of this because Goku can't defend himself from this position. He just can't. And even if he somehow magically did, it would probably involve using almost all of his remaining energy. So instead of going for the kill here like Piccolo easily could have done, and I don't even mean that in the sense of Piccolo killing Goku, but just breaking both of his legs, he could have done this in 100 different ways, almost all more effective. Goku gushes out in pain, and Piccolo delivers the final blow, breaking the final limb Goku had. With 2 broken legs and 2 broken arms, there's not much he can do. This also has thematic relevance because Goku manages to beat Piccolo's dad with just a single arm and 2 broken legs. Piccolo wants to dismantle Goku piece by piece, not just literally, but mentally. He's put him in the exact same position he was in their previous battle in a previous life, but this time he's done it in just a slightly different way to make absolutely sure that Goku is completely destroyed. With a strange mixture of calmness and urgency, Piccolo launches into the air. It's clear that he's going up in the air fairly fast because his body can't quite handle the speed at which he's going, but at the same time there's no real tensity to it. Again, outside influences try to help once more, but Goku tells them to shove off once again. Piccolo, going into the same stance as earlier, launches another beam at Goku. This one significantly smaller than any beam we've seen thus far, showing just how ragged everyone has become. As the beam is about to hit, it cuts to Krillin for him to yell at Goku, and it seemingly seems like Goku has been crushed under the weight of this beam. However, the drawing here says a very different story. When Piccolo got hit by an attack like this, his body got flung into the air, but Goku, on the other hand, seems to have disappeared entirely, seemingly vaporized. A little nuance between the 2 different attacks, even though these are supposedly 2 equivalent fighters. Goku's body, of course, isn't there. Piccolo again does this strange landing. It's calm looking, but again, his body clearly is struggling even just to fly. He then proceeds to do a dramatic victory pose, and begins to think of ways to torture and kill all of Goku's friends and family. You know, as you do. Of course, Goku makes his entrance once more. He's so far away that he's barely a dot in perspective to Piccolo. Again, it just shows how much faster Goku really is. And this page almost perfectly shows the real difference in this fight. Piccolo is completely shocked. He has absolutely no idea how Goku is doing this at all, whereas Goku is just determined to end this fight with this final hit. There's also the importance of what move Goku is currently using. Goku is flying right now. During this entire fight, all the times where Piccolo flew into the air to have some sort of huge advantage, or Goku used extra energy in order to move around mid-air, he could have just been flying. Again, it recontextualizes the entire fight to show that Goku was holding back this entire time just to match what Piccolo was dishing out. It also serves as a big sort of surprise moment. Goku, the main character of the show, knows how to fly, and from this point on, the show is going to be completely different. And this fight contextually displays that concept. Goku is flying. The fight is over. The fight is different now. Piccolo no longer has this huge advantage. Goku is on completely equal footing to Piccolo. He's now stronger, faster, and can fly, meaning everything Piccolo had before has been completely dismantled by Goku in every way. The goal that Piccolo had set out from the beginning to do, Goku has just reversed onto him, and then it ends in a final impact. Now, as continuously has been happening throughout this fight, Goku's body looks wrong, but Piccolo's looks right. Piccolo's reaction to the hit is perfect. It's absolutely what you want to see, but Goku's actual body hitting Piccolo, it doesn't look good at all. His legs kind of like spread up, meaning there's not actually a lot of torque behind the hit. His arms spread apart slightly, but not a lot. Again, there's not torque behind it. He cannot have possibly impacted him that hard if his body is barely reacting to it. And it's reacting in odd ways. It's not flinging itself into the actual impact zone, it's going away from the impact zone, meaning it's a very, very light hit. This is not how you'd actually pose a character who is currently connecting. Even though this attack feels very good and in some ways looks very good and should be effective, it just, because of how it actually is framed, doesn't work. And the only way I could really see to fix this is just by almost completely changing it. So how do you actually make a connection like this actually fit? How do you make it actually work? Piccolo's side of this is perfect. It looks like his ribs are cracking. I think the best way is to shape Goku's body more like a bullet. There's been plenty of times where Goku is just shaped in this straight line bullet formation that makes him look like he's going super fast. If he was shaped like that and then had his head not expand but somewhat crunch into Piccolo's body itself, it really could sell the hit. Or at the very least, it would sell the hit far better than it's currently being sold right now. Because right now, it doesn't look believable. Good idea and a half good execution, but somewhat lacking in the posing of Goku, which seems seems to be the common denominator in this fight. Piccolo gets launched back, Goku slowly falls and slides somewhat into the ground as Piccolo bounces backwards. It's selling it so well. Piccolo looks defeated. He looks ragged. It feels like his ribs have been cracked, his neck is contorted in a way it should not be bending currently, and he just completely falls flat. But it also is selling it on Goku's end. It looks like Goku put everything he had into that attack and he's just fallen limp to the ground now. It feels perfect. It's just that initial connection doesn't quite work. Piccolo falls back to the ground, completely knocked out, and Goku slides across the ground, unable to move a single thing in his body besides his chin and his mouth. The ref and Goku realize that Piccolo has been knocked out of the ring. Again, important on multiple levels. That means that Goku has now officially won, but also that thematic duel has ended, with Piccolo failing on every regard and Goku accomplishing everything he needed to do. The match is over. They're no longer confined by the same limits. Goku managed to get out of this fight what he needed to get out of it, and Piccolo's destiny has forever changed. Whatever is confining them now is different than what was confining them before, and that is an important distinction defined by Piccolo leaving the ring. And in fact, it could be even looked at a different way. Piccolo is out of the ring. Goku is still technically in the ring. Goku is now the strongest man alive, undoubtedly. There's no one stronger than him on this planet. Goku is now more than ever confined by this ring. Goku is now the only one who could stand in this ring. It makes this ending almost bittersweet. A very good use of movement. The announcer bounces up in his proclamation that Goku has won, and everyone else is just ecstatic. They look bouncy, whereas Goku, in contrast, is barely moving. Goku then bullets himself directly in the air to celebrate. There's real bounciness to his movements here. Yes, he's been fully healed, but it seems like he's really enjoying this victory. Mostly probably because he won a World's Martial Arts tournament, but also partly to do with, saving the world and such. Now, as a bit of a role reversal, Goku begins to bullet himself back towards the ground, then ends up stopping God from delivering a blow. Early on, God stopped Goku from being hit, now Goku's stopping God from delivering a hit. I see what you did there. Goku then heals Piccolo, and this truly starts to be the wrap-up of the actual fight. Piccolo springs back to life, and Piccolo just kind of stands there, taking in exactly what just happened. He then postures about taking over the world and killing everyone alive and blah de blah de blah. I'm the king of hell. Ooh, look at me. I can kill all life on Earth. Yada yada. Yeah, and just kind of flies away. What a nerd. During this entire time, though, we don't see Goku's face, which I feel is important for this final reveal. Goku looks completely determined. He wants Piccolo to come back stronger than ever, and he wants to have a legitimately good fight with him. Somewhat of a bittersweet ending. He felt this fight was good, but he knows he can't replicate it again. And that ends the actual exchange between these two combatants. Both sides somewhat destined to go against each other because each side wants something from the other, but neither side really has a reason to fight each other again. So with one of the best displays in martial arts, and with one of the best thematic battles Shonen has seen, this truly is a fight to be remembered. Psych, you thought? Thinking this was a good fight. Get that weak baby IQ out of here. That's right, this was an I was only using 50% of my power fake out. You want an actually really good fight? Tune in next time on Fightography as we tackle the true penultimate battle between Goku and Piccolo. As we compare anime and manga, will our hero be able to overcome this obstacle? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z. Also, like and subscribe and comment and such, because then you'll know when the video is coming out, and also it'll tell YouTube that you want more of this, and that would be good and support the channel and such. Thanks.